Okay. Now, so turn your paper over back to annotating strategies. Number one, Sarah, read number one, please.
Read the introductory paragraph above the passage, including the capstone information, author, context, audience, genre, and purpose. Do not skip this step. There is valuable information there. Continue noting these as you read the passage.
All right, good. So sometimes there's not an introductory paragraph, sometimes there is, but there is a lot of times really good information. You want to take note of, in particular, who's writing it. Because of those questions on the back, some of them were author's purpose. And so if we get a sense of who's writing it, when it's written, what is the genre of it? Is it a speech? Is it an essay? That gives you a sense of who your audience is. Is it a scientific audience? Is it an audience from, 2 centuries ago? Is it a current audience? Is it an audience from the 30s during the Depression? Who's your audience? So you want to pay close attention to all of these, and your introductory paragraph, or sometimes it's just a couple of sentences, give you a lot of that. And this is what you're looking for. Everything tying to this purpose. Okay. So I know we're in a time situation, and sometimes it's like, I just want to get started on the passage and start reading it. But the passage really starts with that little bit of introductory information. And we're going to practice this in just a moment. Okay, as you read a passage, you want to note these things. And I'm going to put a star on the first two. These are the most important ones. So go ahead and do that on yours. Put a star. Okay, so as you read the passage, you need to pay really close attention to the structure, number of paragraphs. I'm not saying to number the paragraphs. Don't do that. I just want you to take a quick glance at the essay, kind of look on the back. Is it 3 big paragraphs, or is it made up of a lot of short paragraphs? Okay. And then I also want you to, you just get a sense of how it's structured. And if it's in big paragraphs, then you need to get a sense of not just what is the topic of each paragraph, but what are some of the subtopics within those paragraphs. Because it's going to say multiple things within a paragraph. But if they have a lot of smaller paragraphs, then you need to figure out, okay, how are those related to one another? Shifts is extremely important. If there is a shift in a passage, I guarantee you there will be a question asking about it in some way. Okay. A lot of shifts are, you'll see them but, yet, however. And a lot of times what shifts, what changes is the tone, or maybe the author's message, or maybe the point of view, bless you, or the topic, or, whatever. But something changes. And so you've got to pay very close attention to shift, because this has to do with the structure. They ask a lot of questions, especially now I'm seeing this. They'll ask about how does this paragraph relate to this paragraph? What is the paragraph? What is the third paragraph's purpose in relation to the second paragraph? What purpose does paragraph 4 serve in relation to the whole passage? So you want to get a sense of the whole thing together. So you want to look at its structure and get a sense of each paragraph. And I'm going to kind of give you some tips on how to do that. We're going to practice it. Okay, pay close attention to tone. And one way to determine tone is you look at the author's word choices and his imagery. If there's a poem called Thanatopsis, and it's about death. The tone you would think would be dark and depressing. It is the most peaceful, contented poem you've ever read. And it's about death. So don't think based on the topic that you know what the tone is. Look at diction and images to get a sense of what is the author's attitude toward the topic. What is his tone? Okay? A lot of students, they'll pick a tone because they're like, well, it's about death, so it's got to be depressing, right? Well, did you read it? Did you see the diction and imagery? It's extremely peaceful. Parallelism. As I read, I just kind of underline as I go. When I see parallel structure, because they do ask a lot of times about the parallel structure, and it doesn't take any time at all to underline. Now, I write very little on when I'm annotating. So when I say annotate, I do not mean write out questions in the in the margin, and I don't mean, you know, write out the meaning of this paragraph. I'm just, you want to write very little. It's mostly underlining and brief labeling. Okay, metaphorical and symbolic language. If there's a metaphor in a passage, almost always they'll ask about it. What is its purpose? What is its tone? Okay. Punctuation. Every time I see a question mark, I always circle it, because if a passage has question marks, they will ask about it. And usually it's, what purpose do these questions serve? So pay close attention when you get to questions. Okay, guys, make sure, I want you to underline and label this, please, Paige. Thank you. Okay, you had a question, Jacob?
No, I was just waiting.
Okay, hey. All right, now, number 3. Tristan, read that, please.
Always know how everything in the passage, structure, tone, diction, imagery, figurative language, rhetorical strategies, syntax, appeals, symbols, punctuation, capitalization, concrete versus abstract ideas, etc., helps the author achieve his purpose.
Okay. So how everything in the passage helps the author achieve his purpose. Because you know they're going to ask about author's purpose. And they ask a lot of times, what's the purpose of this particular paragraph? And you always want to consider, okay, well, it's going to has something to do with helping him achieve his purpose. Okay, Kevin, read that last paragraph, number 4.
Reading questions before reading the passage is time-consuming. It's better to focus your time and full attention on carefully reading the passage to get a full understanding of the author's message and purpose.
Okay, all right, good. So let's go through and practice. So I told you to get out your passage 1, which I know you've already read and answered the questions on, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So we're going to do some, so you're going to get to read it again, I hope, on the corner of my desk. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out showing you, and I want you to imitate what I'm doing up here on your own paper. I'm going to show you, what I just gave you those tips. Now we're going to practice them, okay? Now, let's see. So the first thing that the tips tell you to do is to read the information at the top. So read the following passage from Brainworms, Sticky Music and Catchy Tunes from Musicophilia by Oliver Sacks. Okay, so that's not giving us a ton of information other than what do you think the passage is going to be about based on the titles? Music, right. Okay, so now we are going in. We already have a sense of what it's about. All right, so follow along with me as I read. Sometimes normal music imagery crosses a line and becomes, so to speak, pathological, as when a certain fragment of music repeats itself incessantly, sometimes maddeningly, for days on end. These repetitions, often a short, well-defined phrase or theme of 3 or 4 bars, are apt to go on for hours or days, circling in the mind before fading away. I'm just underlining these words. These kind of jumped out at me as having, we start out with this tone. So what is he talking about?
Getting something stuck in your head.
Yeah, you ever got a song stuck in your head?
Yeah.
And so these are the terms he's using to describe it. So that's his attitude right now. The endless repetition and the fact that the music in question may be irrelevant or trivial, not to one's taste, or even hateful, suggest a coercive process, that the music has entered and subverted a part of the brain, forcing it to fire repetitively and anonymously, as may happen with a tic or a seizure. Okay, so we have a sense of the topic, and so it is music. It's music that gets stuck in your head, and we get a sense of his tone. Many people are set off by the theme music of a film or television show or an advertisement. This is not coincidental, for such music is designed. Okay, to me this is important. Why? Why do you think this is important?
Because it seems like it's leading up to the rest of his essay.
Yeah, like he's going to tell us how. Okay, yeah. In the terms of the music industry, to hook the listener, to be catchy or sticky, to bore its way like an earwig into the ear or mind, hence the